Hello, welcome back. So in the last video tutorial, we were able to fetch the to-dos, okay, and then we were able to print the to-do info on the to-do, okay, on one to-do, and that works. So I commented the code. Now in the last part of the video, I said we have to add more things here, even though this code is okay and it will work as fine when we use it, okay, but then we have to add certain things to control the flow of our UI, or to even make our UI more fluid, okay, based on the data that is being fetched and all that. So before I do that, okay, you know that in our I think this one, with this one we have the homepage to be a list of for the tags. Now when I click on the tags, okay, under the description, okay, we have the to-dos here, so the to-dos will be displayed here. So when we go into our home page here, we actually don't have the tags being fetched, okay, because what we have being fetched is what the to-dos, okay. So we also have to create a method for what fetching all what tags here. So now I'll just copy and then paste the code same here, and then I'll change the code from here to, let's say, tags. Okay, so fetch tags, and then the endpoint should be get all tags, if you remember, because we created the PHP. Okay, so I'll open my browser, and then you can see that the endpoint it was get all tags. So that means this is going to fetch all tags, and then we are going to get the response here, okay, like we did before, and then we are looping through all the response, but this time we are not having what to do's. Okay, what we have now is to create what a list of tags. So I'll come up here and then create the list of tags here. I will list and then tags. Okay, I think it's supposed to be tags, and then with this one I can say tags here. Okay, so the approach is just like before, okay, a list of tags, and then we can just copy this line of code here again to get the list of tags that we have, but this time we are saying tags. Okay, and then we are saying give me a copy of the list of tags and then return it to me. Okay, so that's how we do this. Okay, so now when we come here, we don't need to do, we need tags. Okay, so I'll just remove this line of code here. Okay, and inside I will just comment this line of code. So when we get the response, when we are fetching all tags, sorry, I think I edited the wrong code. Yeah, so I have to come here. So inside here, I will have to remove this, okay, like I was doing in the top part, and then I will comment this code here. So this time we are fetching all tags, and we are getting the response here. We are looping through the response, so we get the data returned to us. So we can create our tags object here. So let's say tags, and then with this tags we can call this like tags here, and we can create the objects here, the instance of the object. So if you look at the task, we need the description, the title, and then the ID. Okay, and when we look at the response that we get the ID here, we also get the description, we also get the title. So all the things that we need are being returned to us. Okay, so we can just go ahead and add ID, and then we can say the data that is being returned, we want the ID there. Okay, and then we also want what, we also want the title, okay, which is data, and then we can say title here. So it's just the same or similar approach here, okay, like we did for the fetch to this. Okay, so now we have this. So this time we have looped through, okay, but after looping through all the list of tags that we have here, so here we have only two here, so we can just go ahead here and then decide to add it to our tags. Okay, so here instead of adding it to our to-dos, we can add it to the tags that we have. So that will be tags. Okay, and then this has to be what, tags here. So now all errors are gone, and then this code will work. So if you remember how we were able to make this run, we came here and then we call this method called a widget.fetch to do's. If I also come here and then I write the same code, widget.model.fetch tags, okay, and then I run this, Okay, and let me just come into my back console, reload the application. So I'm reloading the application. So I'm reloading this. Okay, so now I think I don't have any print method there. So I'll just go ahead and then use the print method here. And I want to print the tax, the first tax that I get. And this time I want to print just the title of the tax. Okay. So I'll reload it again so that I can get the method code. So I'll load again. Okay. So I can see that I have a title here, which is what to do at the shop. So if I go in there, I can see what to do at the shop. Now the fancy part here is that you can see that when we come into the home page, we have two methods being called. Okay, why can't we get just one method and then we can just call that method and use that? Okay, so when we go into the main scope model here, which is the main object that we create and then pass it to the parent parent scope model. Okay, like we create this main model and then we have this object and then we pass it to the model of the scope model here. Then we can go inside the main scope model here, okay, and then create a method like go for void fetch all. Okay, so all our fetch all here methods, we can call them here. So I can call fetch to do's here, and I can also call fetch tax here. Now if I do this, then I can come here and then change the whole thing to what? I can change the whole things to fetch all instead of fetch okay. So now when I do this and then I reload the code again, let me just come here, debug console, clear the console, and then reload the whole thing again. Then I should see what to do at the shop printed here. Okay, yeah. So now this time what we've done is that we've written a simple code here in the main model, which is a simple method here called fetch all, and then we are calling all fetch methods that we have in our scope model. Okay, so if we get multiple fetch methods, we will come here and let's say for example we have another fetch called fetch categories. Okay, then that means we are going to put that here also like fetch categories. Okay, so the reason why we are doing this is because we want the when the app loads, okay, when they upload, we want to make sure that we fetch all data into the system. Okay, except there are some part of the data that you don't want to fetch into the system at once. Okay, but then naturally, because we are going to work with the to-dos and then the tasks immediately when they upload, then it is more sensible to create a fetch all method inside the main method and then call all the fetch methods inside. Okay, you get my point. So now, yeah, I will save it. So now we have back to our to-do scope model, and then we have this being working. We are fetching all tasks, it's working, and then to-do is working. So how do we use this? And then I said that we are going to do some things here, but then let's think about it. How are we going to use this in our code? Okay, to do this in our code, when I go into the main scope model here, okay, sorry, not the main scope model. So now when I come here, like homepage, extend the stateful widget here. This is my homepage, and this is what we are seeing here. So now how do I display it? You know that we said that in the main model, okay, that we created this main model thing here. Okay, we said that the root of our app is what? The material app. So think of it that this is where your whole app begins. Okay, so this is like the root of your app. So we have the material app here. Now with this material app here, we've wrapped the main entry of our app for the scope model. So that means all the other pages that we have in our app will be what? Let's say children of this main parent widget, which is the material app. Are you getting my point? So material app here is acting as the parent what widget, and other pages or other widgets, okay, inside the app will become what the children. You get my point? So when we have we wrap the material the parent widget with what our scope model here, and then every child or every descendant of that material app will what now have access to what to the scope model. You get my point? So that means when we come here, this home page is what a descendant or a child of this material app, what material app widget. Okay, so you think of it as like a tree. Okay, the material app is at the top, the homepage is inside the material app, blah blah blah. You get a point here. So now when I go into my homepage model, then if I want to use the scope model here, if I go to my homepage here and I want to use the scope model, then I have to wrap any widget. Okay, you know that everything in Flutter is a widget. So this scope model is a widget. Sorry, this scaffold is a widget. This outbar is also a widget. So any widget that I want to have, I want to use data, or I want to use the scope model with, then I have to wrap that with what? A scope model descendant. Okay. So if you look at this, we know that the list, where's the code for the list? The list view here. Okay. We know that the list view needs the data that we fetch, which is when we come here, we need the data that we fetch, which is the to-dos and then the tasks. Okay. So how am I going to get access to this and this? Now, to get access to this and this, we've already seen when we come into the home page, we've already seen that we can do something like widget.model.fetch all, and then we get access to what the methods that we have inside. But then, how are we going to use the to do and then the task that is being returned to us, the list? So when we come here, then this is what a descendant of the material app, and I want to get access to this to do and then the task. Then in this sense, I have to wrap this, okay, with what a scope model descendant. So I will just cut this list view for now, okay, and then I will wrap this with what a scope model descendant. Okay, this time I'm not going to do scope model, just scope model like I did for the app here. You can see that this is scope model. But here I'm going to do what? Scope model descendant. So I'm telling the app or the model that this is what a child of what the scope model. So now if I wrap any widget with scope model descendant, then give me access to give me access to all the methods, and then field in the what in the scope model. Okay, so now I can just go ahead and then put this called a build contest and then contest. Okay, and then I will explain to you how this should work. Okay, main model. Okay, now so you can see that I have, you see initially there was a list view here, and now let me just import this and then the error should go. Okay, main model, not no main mode. Okay, so now I have this, the error is gone. Now let me just quickly do something so that you can see the code well. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, so now with this one, you can see that when we when we use the scope model descendant, okay, the scope model descendant is also like a widget. Okay, it's also like a widget. That is why we are able to pass it to this, because you know that the child will always accept what a widget. You get a point. So when I put my mouse here, my cursor here, you can see that it's looking for what a widget. If I put anything that is not a widget here, then it is not going to work. So the scope model descendant is a widget on its own. You get a point. So I have the build contest. Okay, now when you use the scope model descendant, you have to specify the builder. Okay, like the way that we we use other, let's say we use this material page and then we have a builder and then we can pass in the context and then go to another page. Okay, so with the scope model descendant, we need a builder here, and then that builder method, okay, should have what the build context, the chart, okay, which will be the widget that we want to return, and then we should also have what the model, the parent model, and then in this sense, the parent model is the main model that we have. Okay, so now I'm going to return the code that I copied, which is the list view, and then I'm going to end it. So inside this builder, okay, you look at the endpoint inside this builder, I return the widget that I want to wrap the scope model descendants with. So now this become a child to the parent scope model here, and because I have access to this main model here, then I can what use the model inside here. You get my point? So now I will save it, and then everything is back to normal. Okay, there was an error, but everything is now back to normal. Now, how are we going to use the data here? Okay, so I will come here and then just go ahead and print something here, and then I will say the the tags that we have in our database, and then I can use model dot sorry. Okay, so now I have this. Then this time I have access to the model because this is the descendant. I have access to the model. Now I can do model dot tags here. Now when I do this and then I reload the page, I want to see this message printed in my console and then with the tags added to it. So I'll reload. Okay, so this was the error I was talking about because we cut the code. Okay, but don't never mind because you understand now. So now I'll reload the page. Okay, and let's see what we get. When I reload, the home page will reload again. So we can see that this is saying that the tags that we have in our database, and then this time we are not getting, we get um an empty data here. The reason why we got an empty data here is because we didn't even wait for the thing to load. Okay, but we were trying to access it. Okay, so that is one way that we are also going to fix that error. So when we come here, this is the tags that we are getting, and then we can use the tags in our code. So let's come back here, but this time if I come here, I have access to the tags. Okay, but it was empty because you can see that it reloaded. Okay, let me save it again, and I'm still having an empty tax, which doesn't make any sense at the moment. Um, I don't know why I'm getting an empty tax because I'm not supposed to get empty. So let's see what we are not doing. So we added the tax and then we printed, so everything is working. So why am I getting an error there? So let's check. We say print the list and then we say return this, and I'm getting an error. So I'll quickly change this line of code to this form. Okay, and then I'm going to say return. I just want to see something. Okay, and then I'll save this and then I have to remove this. Okay, what I deleted was the short form of it, and I still get an empty tax here. Okay, so why am I getting an empty tax here? And I don't know, I can't tell, but anyway, so we have this. Okay, um let's see what about the to-dos. Okay, dot to-dos. Okay, let's say to-dos, and let's see if we get anything printed, and we still get empty variable here, which doesn't actually make sense why we are getting that, because we are supposed to get the data here. Okay, so what one thing I'm going to do is I'm intentionally going to do what model dot fetch OL again, and then save it here so that I can see if it's going to fetch and then I'll get something there. and I still get the same error, which doesn't make sense to me. I still get empty here. Okay, this is awkward. All right. So I have this returned to us. I have access to my list. Okay. So let me come back here and check what is wrong. Okay, that's one ways that you can mostly check if you have an error in the code. How do you fix them? So I have this to do. I have this to do here. Let me just change this to do's, not to do. Yeah. And then I also have this tags here. So this and this code are similar. Just the one is a short form. That's okay. I have tags here. Oh, I see why I'm getting an error. Okay. So when we look at this, we have to do here, which doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I have tags being tags, and then I'm returning this. So that means actually I have an error in my code here. Okay, I have an error in my code here. So that is why I said there are more things that we have to do in our scope model. Okay, but I wanted to go ahead and then print it. So now here I will have to change here to tags, and let's see. I have to do's. I have list that from to do's. That's okay, and then this also from tags. That's okay. I save it. And then I have fetch to do's. That makes sense. I add the to do's to do, and then I print error. That's okay. So I'm just making sure that everything makes sense at the moment. Save this, and let's check again. And I think let me just reload the whole thing because the list is not supposed to be empty. Okay, okay. Now I think this is printing two times somewhere. So I think in the print statement I have only one here. But then I'm seeing two print statements here. The reason is because I came to call the fetch here again. Now when I save it again, I want to see something in the list, and still I don't see anything in the list. This is quite interesting. I don't know because it's supposed to work. So let me just call the tax. Okay, the tax, the that length. Let me just use the length and see what happens. Because when we are using the scope model descendants here, everything should work, and I still get zero. That means nothing is inside. This is interesting. Scope model descendant. We have the home page here, which is being wrapped by the app, material app here. Okay, and then the home page here, which is okay. I pass down the model here, which is quite okay. Why is it that I'm getting an error? Yeah. Now I understand why I'm getting the error because I remember in the beginning of the video I said I have to do certain things, and then in the last video tutorial I told you that there are things that we have to do. Now I forgot myself because I didn't go by what I said that I'm going to teach you before we continue. Now, like I said in the video, in the previous video tutorial, I said that there are things that we have to do here to make sure that this work. Okay, and then the the thing that we have to do is when we use a scope model a scope model in our app. Okay, there is something that we have to always call. Okay, a method that we always have to call, which is known as what the we also have to call, which is known as the what notifier listener. So you can think of the notifier listener as what uh, uh a set state. Okay, something like a set state where it will refresh by itself. Okay, so when we call the notify listener, it will rebuild the the page automatically. So any widget, okay, let me come to the home page. Any widget that is wrapped with the scope model descendant, when we call the notifier listener inside any method that is being used by the scope model descendant, then it will refresh that page. It's something like the set state. Okay, so here after calling or after fetching the whole models to do, and then we add everything to it here. Okay, we we now have this here. Okay, so what we can now go ahead and do is to just notify listeners. Okay, when I do notify listeners here and then I save here, I'll just copy the same line of code here. Let's see if it works. And then I'll come and paste this line of code here. Okay, and then comment this code here. Now when I do this and then I come back to the console, and then you can see I'm getting some code loading. So let me just comment this line of code because yep, and then I will close the whole thing again. Okay, so I will reload, save the whole thing again and see. So here we are still getting 0, but then when we come inside here, we know that we are getting our value. Okay, let me just uncomment one. Which one am I even calling? I think the tax. So I'll just uncomment this one, save it, and let's see it printed in our thing. Okay. So which one am I using? Tax. Okay, tax here. Okay. So I'll reload the whole thing and let's see what we get. So when we call the thing here, we can see we are getting, now you can see that we are getting what the data. When we reload the whole thing, we can see that we are getting the this information printed. Okay, which is what to do at the store. And then this time we are getting the tags that we have in our database is 2. So now this is telling us that we have 2 tags, okay, in our database, and that makes sense. Okay, so when we come here, you can see that this time we are getting the length well. So if I now remove this and I say give me the tags and then I save it here, you can see after reloading. Okay, let me show you something. Now there's one problem that we also have to fix. Okay, just take your time and then try to understand. Now you see that when we have the title here. When I reload the thing, I have the title here which comes, and then it makes sense. Okay, and then now I have some instance of stacks in what, in the model.task list. Okay, that works. But then if I go here, if I come inside and I press my control save here, now it is empty. Now the reason is that when I press Control S here, the page refreshes again, and then this whole thing goes back to normal. Okay, this let me come up here. Let's work on the to dos here. So now when I okay, we are working on the task. Okay, so in the first task, when I now press Control Save again, this task here, we know that initially is what, empty. So when I press the Control Save again, now this will become empty. You get a point. This will become empty. This task thing will become empty. So the one technique that we have to do is we have to create final, and then we have a list of what tags here, and then we can say my tags list here, and then here we can put it as empty. And then when we do that, we want to rather add the items to what, my tags here. Okay, we want to add it to this list, and then when we are done adding to the list, we want to now assign the tags to what, my tags list. We want to assign my task list to our task. Instead of adding it directly on it, we want everything to complete, and then before we add this. I don't know if you get my point. The reason why I'm doing this is because when I press on the control save, this first task is not being called. Okay, when I press on control save, this task is not what, is not being called. It is only called when I what, reload the application. When I reload the application, then this init state is being called, and then it calls what, fetch all. When this call fetch all, then this will be called, fetch task will be called, and then this fetch to do will also be called. But then everything will go back to what, empty, empty. And then what, when it fetch, when these methods are being called, now it adds to it. But when I press control save, Okay, everything here is being reinitialized to what? Empty, empty. But then these methods are not being what? Are not being called because they are only called when I reload the app or when I start the app. Okay, in this sense, when you start the app, when the user is having the app and then he clicks on the app and then it will open the apps. That is only when it is what? It is being called. So with this sense here, then I have to also what? Make sure that I don't directly call this on that. Okay, so you let's just see we have this and then I have assigned it to this. So now let's save it and then let's reload the whole app. Let's see what we get. So initially it was 0 and then we have empty, empty. Where is this error coming from? So I think I'm having an error inside here. So it's saying, okay, yeah, let me just comment this line of code. Yeah, because of that. So now I'll reload the whole thing again. Let's see if it works. That's one. Yeah, now I'm getting the instance of this two again. So I'll press Control Save again and see what happens. And when I press the Control Save again here, I'm still getting this to be empty. And this is fascinating. So let's just check why we are getting this to be empty here again. Okay, so we can solve this solution, okay, by making sure that even though we call the fetch all from here, okay, we can call the fetch all in the build method here. So that's one way we can fix this, okay, and then we can just forget about the any state here, which will make sense, okay. So I'll just put this one here because this is rebuilding the whole interface. Okay, now you can see that it is being called anytime that the app rebuilds, and this is not a good way of doing this thing because that means our app is in constant what loop. So I will fix this in the next video tutorial, but then for now what we have to think about is that we have to do what, make sure that we can call this fetch all here, and then with this fetch all here, then I have my model the task being written as two, okay, two instance. So I'm going to use this in the app here for now. So now let's use the fetch all here and it will work, but then in the next video tutorial I will teach you the proper way to do it because I'm expecting that this is supposed to work, but it is not working. But if you do this, it works. So I will explain it in the next video tutorial. So for now, let's call it here, which will put this thing here in a constant loop. Okay, it is putting it in a constant loop, which is not all right. Okay, so I'll close this for now, and then now when we come here, we can now change this to what? Let's view dot builder because now we are come to use the thing there. So I'll cut this code from there, the gesture detector. And then when I'm using listView.builder, I have to change the whole thing to what? Um, item builder. And then I have to have the build context, and then I have an integer and then index. Okay, and then I also need the item count. So I think you know how to do these things, okay? So the item count will be model dot tax dot length model.task.length. Okay, so that will be the items that we have, the count of the items that we have here, and then the code that I copied, I'll return it here and then I'll save it here. So now this means that when I look into my app here, I should see two items here. Okay, two lists here. Okay, so now we have to make this dynamic. So with here we know that we are getting the model.tax, and then we can change the title from here to what? Model.tax here, and then we know that the index should be what? Index. Okay, we are accessing this and then we can give the title here, and then we can also remove this and then change it to what? Model.tax dot model doctors index here dot what description. Now when I save this code here, now when I look inside, I should see that this has changed. Okay, so let's just add some spaces to um our code. Okay, I mean our card there. So now I can go into my I think in the card design I have it in the widget, and then task card, and I want to just add some padding. So I'll just, or let's add margins. So I can say edge insert dot only. So I want for the, I think bottom will be okay, and then I want 16.0, so that is okay. And now when we see we have some space there, so that is okay. So now we are seeing our task being listed. So I think in the next video tutorial I'm going to actually look for why we were not able to just um use it here. Okay, and then I'll come and then explain to you why this was not working instead of having to call this here. So I will see you in the next video tutorial. Okay, thank you for watching.